All right, you feather merchants. This is about an inmate that I ran into in Pelican Bay. Actually, it's the only inmate that I ever met that I didn't think belonged in prison, and especially Pelican Bay. Um, I was in Pelican Bay from the early 1990 to the end of 2005. And this particular inmate, I don't want to use his real name. I'm going to just refer to him as Houdini. And he came to us on an interstate compact agreement, which means he came from another state. And I was told the reason he was sent to us is because he had attempted to escape and had escaped, I think, about 7 different times from different correctional facilities in the state he came from. So they sent him to us, and no one was going to come out of Pelican Bay. Anyway, make a long story short, his original commitment is well, for one thing, he had a very high IQ, but his social skills weren't really that great, and so he would have trouble communicating. And he originally was sent to either a jail or a county facility for taking something that already belonged to him. And what happened is his father had passed away. He left his Houdini with all his tools, and Houdini at that time was kind of young, not very old, and he left him with these tools, but the tools were in probate, and the court has to do whatever they do, and then they divvy up whatever was left to people in the will, and evidently his stepmother didn't particularly like him, and so Houdini, he didn't want to wait for the probate nonsense, so he just went in the garage and took his tools. They belonged to him. Anyway, his stepmother called the police, and the police arrested him. Well, and I believe that's when one of his first escapes. And the problem is, okay, he comes in on a bullshit commitment, but when you start escaping from correctional facilities, different prisons, you're going to add more time to your sentence. Now, if he would have just sat there and let the courts handle it, they would have ironed the issue out, and he would have been on his way. But he didn't do that. He kept escaping, and they kept giving him more time, and he kept going to higher level institutions. To finally, somebody thought that he needed to come to Pelican Bay, so he comes to Pelican Bay, and he lands on A Yard. And so anyway, I read up about him, and I was on the security squad then, so it was our job to look at it, high escape risk, or anyone that has the potential to keep committing crimes inside prison. And so anyway, I went and interviewed him, and when I interviewed him, it was, boy, I just couldn't see it. I thought it was hard to imagine that he was that bright, but he was. He really did have a high IQ. So as time went on, we kept hearing stories that this guy's got a lot of cash on him. Well, if you have a lot of cash on you, they're going to keep it up their rectum, right, and body cavity. So, and I'm not a proctologist, so it's not like I can go to a cell and do an anal inspection. Well, anyway, we kept hearing these stories. So Pelican Bay at the time, they in the mailroom, they must have been like about 5,000 pieces of mail would come in and out of Pelican Bay daily. And I would inspect mail, but looking for drugs and that sort of thing. And I can't remember if I'm the one that discovered it or somebody else discovered it, but somebody had mailed him LSD concealed under a postage stamp. Well, so anyway, my partner and I, we went to his cell, Houdini's cell, and he was celled up with another guy, and they were both on the yard at the time. Well, when we searched his cell, we found either 5 or 6 hypodermic kits in there that was stolen out of the A-yard clinic. And we may have found something else there too, but I remember that stood out in my mind. So the fact that he had the LSD that had been mailed to him, and he had the hypodermic kits, and that we had that information that he had a lot of cash on him, we requested that he be put on contraband watch. And contraband watch is they put you in a dry cell, and you have to defecate. I believe at the time you had to defecate 3 different times, and if you got something up there, generally it's going to come out. Well, they had a sergeant and several officers took Houdini and his cellie. They marched him down to the security housing unit, and that's where they had the dry cells and the contraband watch. And on the way there, Houdini said, tells the sergeant, he says, I don't have anything. He says, and I can prove it. Just give me an x-ray. So the sergeant calls back up, calls us, and we suggested that give him the x-ray, but he still goes on contraband watch. Just don't tell him that. So anyway, they take him to x-ray. Houdini's cellmate x-rays first, and they saw an empty tube secreted in his body cavity, anal body cavity. So he takes that out and gives it to him. Now it's Houdini's turn. They don't find anything. There's nothing there. Now I know they didn't call him Houdini for nothing. So anyway, he goes down to contraband watch. And while he's on contraband watch, he actually has a correctional officer sitting right in front of his cell watching him. And the cells were right next to each other. Houdini's in one, his cellmate is in the other one. After 3 days, I think it was after 3 days, but he had defecated the required amount of times, nothing was found. And the captain called us and said, I got to cut this guy loose. So we went down to a cell, the holding cell, and the first thing I noticed, there's a string going from Houdini's cell to his cellmate's cell. Anyway, so obviously they had something, they're passing it back and forth. And they're doing this in front of an officer. I'm sure he maybe had to use the restroom, but whatever. They got a break where they could do this. So what I did is I cuffed his cellmate up, and he's in his underwear. So you can tell he doesn't have anything on him. And I told him to open his mouth. And what first thing he did, he goes like this. He barely opens his mouth. I said, look, you got to open your mouth or you're going to spend another 3 days in this dry cell. So he finally opens his mouth. I shine a light in there, and right away I saw he had a string going from his back molar down his throat. So it can't be anything big. It's got to be something small to be lodged in there, but it's something. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a bag of drugs or what. So I told him, I said, look, if you give me what's in there, I'll get you out of there, and we'll get you into cell, and you take a shower and everything. So what he does, he reaches his finger in there and breaks the string and swallows the contraband. And I said, well, that's a nice trick, but we're not releasing you. You're not leaving this cell until you give us that contraband. And he told me, he said, I'm calling my lawyer. And I mentioned to him, I said, I don't know if you noticed or not, but you don't have a telephone in this cell, so you're not calling your lawyer. Well, anyway, I go to Houdini's cell, and I tell Houdini, I said, look, we know you got the tube up there with the money and everything. I said, I already talked to the captain. They know it, and they're going to keep you here another 3 days, unless you give us the contraband. And so he said, okay. He said, if I give it to you, will you get me out of here and make sure I get a clean cell and a shower? I said, yeah, definitely, which I did. And anyway, he squatted down and he defecated a tube out of his rectum that had, I think it was $2,500 in cash. He had a Rolex watch band, the stainless steel gold band that they have on Rolex watches. Actually, it was, I can't remember, was it before this incident or after this incident, but we caught him with a Rolex watch in there that had been stolen in a robbery in Los Angeles. Anyway, that's another story. So along with the $2,500 in cash, the Rolex watch band, he had a few men's rings, nice gold rings. He had a woman's ring in there. He had some kind of like a brooch that a woman would wear on her blouse or something like that. And I remember he had a package of razor blades also. I'm sure there was, the whole thing, the tube was pretty well filled up. I just can't recollect right off the top of my head how much stuff he had in there. But anyway, you got to wonder, how on earth did he hide that from the sergeant and the officers that had him x-rayed and in the first place? But that's how clever he was. Well, anyway, when the captain, of course, let him know what we found and everything. And that Christmas, he sent me a postcard from Shu, and he said, he called me Captain Conehead. He used to call the security squad Coneheads, and he thought I was their captain, but I wasn't. I was just one of the Coneheads. And he said, Merry Christmas and Happy Investigations, and he signed it. And I thought that was pretty funny. You know, he realized that I tricked him, and he was showing his appreciation that I had the ability to actually trick him, you know. Anyway, that guy had, off of that original commitment offense of breaking into his stepmother's garage and taking what actually belonged to him, he ended up in prison. He went from the city to the county to different prisons and landing in Pelican Bay State Prison. And that guy was never violent. He never hurt anyone. He would just do stupid stuff, you know, like they'd catch him with drugs occasionally. He's always making alcohol. And he just would have one infraction after another. And he just kept adding more time to his sentence. But that guy is the only inmate that I ever ran into that I really believe should have never been sent to prison in the first place. And he's, as far as I know, he's still in prison today. And by now, this guy, his brains are so scrambled. You know, you have someone locked up like that all those years, and they're not going to be able to function on the outside. They need to release him, I mean, in my opinion. And somebody owes him money, I would think. You know, you send someone to prison for that long on such a frivolous commitment. Boy, I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. The only thing is, like, what are you going to do with him? He probably belongs in a mental institution, but if he doesn't want to be in that mental institution, he'll walk right out of there. That guy could escape from any kind of mental facility in a heartbeat. So I don't know what they're going to do with him. I read articles about him every once in a while, and I know someone made a documentary about him. Like I said, I don't feel comfortable giving the guy's name, you know, and he's still alive, and he's still in prison someplace. Anyway, that's the end of this particular story, and I'm going to sign off. All right, you feather merchants,